Jack had always been fascinated by urban exploration. There was something exhilarating about stepping into the past, walking through places where time had stopped, and uncovering the secrets that others had forgotten. His YouTube channel, Dark Explorer, was dedicated to these adventures. He had explored abandoned mansions, deserted amusement parks, and even underground bunkers. But nothing compared to his next target, Blackwood Asylum. Blackwood had been shut down decades ago under mysterious circumstances. The official reports claimed it was due to poor funding and unsafe conditions, but the locals whispered darker stories. They spoke of patients who vanished overnight, of experiments gone wrong, and of a doctor who refused to leave, even after death. Jack had done his research. The asylum was built in 1924 and specialized in treating severe mental illnesses. However, in the late 1960s, the government began funding more ethical treatments, and places like Blackwood became obsolete. It officially closed in 1971, but strange sightings had been reported ever since: shadowy figures in the windows, faint whispers echoing through the halls, and even screams late at night. Jack was determined to go inside. Late one November night, Jack convinced his two best friends, Ethan and Daniel, to join him. Armed with flashlights, a GoPro, and a handheld camera, they drove toward the outskirts of town. The asylum stood deep in the woods, its silhouette barely visible against the moonlit sky. The building was massive, 4 stories high, with crumbling walls covered in ivy. The iron gate in front was slightly open, as if inviting them in. A cold wind whistled through the trees, making the rusted metal creak. "Are we really doing this?" Ethan asked, rubbing his arms. Jack grinned. "Come on, it'll be legendary. Think about the views." Daniel sighed. "Fine, but if we hear anything weird, we're leaving. No second chances." Jack nodded, though he had no intention of leaving early. They stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and decay. The floor was littered with broken glass, old papers, and rusted medical tools. Their footsteps echoed through the empty halls. Faintly, the scent of rotting wood and something metallic almost like blood hung in the air. Jack turned on his camera. "All right guys, we're inside Blackwood Asylum. This place is beyond creepy. Let's see what we can find." As they moved through the corridors, their flashlights illuminated abandoned wheelchairs, overturned beds, and patient files scattered across the floor. The graffiti on the walls wasn't the usual street art. Instead, the words were disturbing. "I see you. Don't run. It never left." "Who the hell wrote these?" Daniel muttered. "Probably other explorers trying to scare people," Jack said, though he didn't fully believe it himself. Then, they heard it. A whisper. Ethan froze. "Did you hear that?" Jack nodded. "Yeah, but it sounded like it came from that way." He pointed toward a hallway marked Ward 13. A chill ran down Daniel's spine. "That's where they kept the worst patients, man. The violent ones." Jack smirked. "Then let's check it out." The door to Ward 13 was slightly open. Jack pushed it wider, the rusty hinges screeching. Inside, the room was filled with old, yellowed patient records. But something else caught his eye. A videotape. It sat on an old metal table, covered in dust, labeled in shaky handwriting. "Experiment 47." Jack's heart pounded. "We need to watch this." He slipped the tape into his backpack, just as a loud bang echoed through the hall. They froze. Then footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Getting closer. Ethan whispered, "We need to go. Now." They turned and ran. As they sprinted through the hall, Jack turned for a second and saw a tall, shadowy figure standing at the end of the corridor. Staring at them. They burst through the front doors, gasping for air. Back at Jack's apartment, they wasted no time. They dusted off an old VHS player and inserted the tape. The screen flickered to life. A dimly lit hospital room appeared. A doctor, his face partially obscured, stood over a patient strapped to a bed. The patient thrashed violently, his eyes rolling back, mouth foaming. Then he stopped moving. The doctor leaned over him. "Subject 47, can you hear me?" For a moment, there was silence. Then, the patient's head snapped toward the camera. He let out an inhuman, ear-piercing scream. The screen went black. Then a whisper. "I see you." Suddenly, Jack's TV screen shattered from the inside. And behind the broken glass a pair of glowing, soulless eyes stared back. Jack barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the whisper. "I see you." The next morning, his phone buzzed. A new video had been uploaded to his channel. But he hadn't uploaded anything. He clicked on it, his blood running cold. It was the VHS tape. Only this time, at the end of the footage, the camera panned away from the hospital bed to reveal Jack, Ethan, and Daniel standing in the hallway. watching. The video glitched. Then, the whisper returned. Now I see everything.